Okay, we are officially recording. How this hour will go is I'll do some introductions. I have some slides to keep me on track. I'll jump over to our guidelines and also our application to help walk you through the process. Throughout, you're most welcome to put questions in the chat. Brianna Jones, my co-worker, is keeping an eye on that, as well as James McKissick, and or just unmute and say it out loud, and we'll stop and answer anything. Okay, I am going to share my slides. Um, can everybody see where it says Artist Works, Artist Work Grant, info session? Perfect. Thank you, Leonard. I could see where you can see it, so great. Okay, so we're here. This is our informational session for our Artist Work Grant. You'll see the beautiful sculpture created by Jay Baker. She was a recipient. They are a
Sorry,
recipient.
I can't see it. I see somebody's screen. I don't see the.
Uh, okay, who else cannot see my slides?
It
Melissa,
looks like
it's
it's just open to your menu page and you
yeah,
can
to the
click on it.
file, like where you select the file,
Oh,
not
okay.
it's not open yet.
Okay, thank you. See if I try it this way. It, it's funny, it's like no matter how many years I do Zoom, I learn something every time. Now can you see my PowerPoint? No,
And if you want to put it in
I'll do
show
Canva.
mode, we couldn't see it though.
Oh, you could see
We
it?
could see it. It was not in like slideshow mode. It was
Yeah, okay, that's great. Then I'll
we
head
could
back
see it
over
though.
there. I just needed to put it into slide mode then. Mm, mm, okay. Okay. I will eventually get this. Sorry, guys. Hmm. Well, I'm getting it pulled up. I'll give James and Brianna an opportunity to introduce themselves and their roles here at ArtsBuild.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm James, the president of ArtsBuild, and we're excited to be able to share these spring grant opportunities with you. And Melissa, it was on screen at that point.
I know.
You need me to keep
You
stalling
think-
for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But yeah, so we're excited also. And as we do this, we are also always looking for community members who will be grant reviewers for us throughout the year because we don't make the decisions as a staff or a board. We engage community in selecting the grants and the awards for Arts Build. So thank you all for showing up, and I'll turn it over to Brianna to introduce herself and then back to Melissa.
Hey everyone, I'm Brianna Jones, Programs and Grants Coordinator here at ArtsBuild. I manage our professional development programs for artist entrepreneurs and students looking for careers in the arts. And then I also assist Melissa with launching and enacting our grant programs as well. And the slideshow is up, so I'll give it back to Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for stalling for me as I got my technology in line. So I'm Melissa. I oversee the grant making programs here at ArtsBuild. And we've done a welcome. We'll do a brief overview about ArtsBuild and then talk about Artist Work Grant the guidelines and the applications. I'll open it up for questions and comments. Um, y- there are many of you in here that are well versed in all things ArtsBuild, but if you're not, our mission is to build stronger communities through the arts. We do this in multiple capacities. I'll talk about grant making at the end, but we have arts education. Some of you might know that we send upwards to nearly 14,000 Hamilton County school children to arts field trip, K through 5, and our hopes is maybe to expand that to our middle schoolers as well. Throughout the year, we have shared services. There are different types of workshops to help our artists or our arts organizations do what they do even better. I know we have some coming up. Brianna, if she has the capacity, can put registration for the AI workshops coming. I've surprised her with that little piece. So give her a second and maybe she can put the link in chat. There's 2 coming up. And then we have leadership development. And what that is, it is a 9-month program where we have a cohort of individuals who work with my coworker Robin Stringfellow to meet once a month and learn about all things arts in Hamilton County. It's sort of like leadership Chattanooga, but for the arts. You don't have to be an artist to participate. We invite anyone in our community to learn with us through that program. And I'll put her email in the chat because we'll start recruiting very soon for our next cohort starting in July. And then advocacy. This is an important piece. We have a new arts impact coordinator. Her name is Christina Sacco. And what we've learned in the last few years is we need to be very vibrant in how we communicate the impact of the arts from an economic and a human perspective on our county. And then grant making, that is a big part of what we do. And we run about 5 to 6 granting programs through the year. Our biggest one is mission support. And but then we have about 4 to 5 project-based grants, and that's what we'll learn about today, specifically ArtistWorks. I'm going to read this statement so that we can all hear it with our ears and see it with our eyes. ArtsBuild does not and shall not discriminate on the, oops, sorry about that. On the basis of race, color, religion, creed, gender expression, age, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, sexual orientation, or military status in any of its activities or operations. These activities include, but are not limited to, hiring and firing of staff, selection of volunteers and vendors, and provision of funding and services. We are committed to providing an inclusive, welcoming environment for all members of our staff, clients, volunteers, subcontractors, and vendors. I do like to take a moment to thank those who support all of our programs, which includes grant making. We are very grateful to be supported by individual donors, community members such as yourself, City of Chattanooga, National Endowment for the Arts, Tennessee Arts Commission, and local foundations. This round of Artist Works, we are especially thankful to Mark Making and the Robert Finley Stone Foundation for their fiscal support. This is one of my favorite slides of this whole slide deck. This one and the next one, it demonstrates the impact of this grant. You'll see Jay Baker's in-process creation of her sculpture. At the bottom, you'll see Mr. Charlie Newton and his piece that is hung at Common Spirit, which some of us know as Memorial Hospital. Up on the top, you'll see musicians working with individual or playing chamber music for individuals with Parkinson's. You see teacher residencies, dancer residencies. Um, in this one, you see Miss Iantha Newton. She created large-scale pieces that were hung in the Hickson Walmart to create accessibility to engaging in art. Then you see Legacy America, where the train, there was a documentary created. Next Exit Production did some 10-minute play festival. Crabtree Farms did a tile mosaic project. And then Andrea Zoppo, she did Weather is Weather, a live performance piece. And I'm so excited that I remembered all of those over this last 2, 3 years. But they're a great example of what can be accomplished through this grant program. So why Artist Works? This program was birthed during the pandemic. Was a response to the loss of audiences, jobs, and patrons experienced by the COVID pandemic. And as we had moved forward through this program, we were noticing the tremendous impact that this program has on our local artists because it engages artists, engages our public, it pays artists, it has a direct economic impact on businesses here in Hamilton County. And so we have continued to move forward this grant program thanks to support from foundations such as Mark Making and the Bobby Stone Foundation. So the timeline, as you all probably noticed via our website, the application is open. It's been open since March 12th, so it's not too far into the process, so you have plenty of time to fill it out. It is due April 30th, 11:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I emphasize that because late applications will not be reviewed. If you have any challenges throughout the process, just reach out to me and we will support you through it. But we do require that it is submitted on time. We want to increase the ability for all people to apply to our grants. And so we do offer draft reviews. And what that means is you have entered your entire application into the grant system and it's in draft form. You haven't submitted it yet, but it's almost ready to be submitted. You would email me by April 20th, sooner the better, and say, hey, Melissa, can you do a draft review? And what that means is I will read through it through the eyes of a reviewer and give you feedback. And I'll send you feedback via email. You're welcome to use the feedback or not, based on how you want your grant to look in the final form. But we try to help you throughout. So why I need to look at it in the system and not as a document emailed to me is because I look for the content and making sure it flows well and it has all the component parts. But I also make sure that you've attached documents correctly. I ensure that you've used the budget template that's required and give feedback. So it's feedback on form and content. So I'm very specific about that. And if you forget it when you email me, I'll just remind you and then we'll get you started on the right path. And then we'll talk about review panels in a few, but those dates are June 3rd and 4th. And then grant award notifications will go out by June 10th. We'll talk about project run dates, but the grant funding does not start until June 15th. And so we have time to get if you're awarded, letters of understanding signed and things of that nature, so that any expenses occurring June 15th and after will be eligible to be covered through this grant. So who's eligible to apply? An artist or a group of artists who live within Hamilton County or a county bordering Hamilton County. The important part is project activities must be facilitated within Hamilton County, Tennessee. Many of you on this call will notice the shift of a county bordering Hamilton County. What we have recognized over the past year is that we have a lot of great artists who live just over the Hamilton County border, but do their work within Hamilton County. And so we did not want to disclude them from applying. But as long as the projects happen in Hamilton County, we're good. Some of you will also be on here representing a nonprofit organization or a community organization, and you are probably thinking about applying. What to keep in mind is this is an artist-led or artist-led grant program. So the artists or group of artists can work with a nonprofit organization or a community organization to move forward a project. But the organization cannot be the lead driver. It has to be the artist or group of artists. And so as you're formulating your ideas and you're connecting with other artists, if you have questions about that, reach out. We really want this to be artist driven versus an organization has an idea and then they invite artists in. This is different than it has been in the past, so I'm really emphasizing this language right now. If you have questions, you're welcome to speak up now or put it in the chat or at the end or when we're offline, we can talk about it. So the artistic disciplines is pretty wide for this grant program and for all of our grant programs. So visual art, fine craft. So that's working with a traditional media. I gotta move this. Sorry, I can't see my thing. Working with a traditional material or medium. Media includes film and photography. Performance is dance, music, instrumental, theater, or vocal, and literary arts. You'll notice in the application that there's a capacity to check more than one because we know that some artists span several categories. As long as you fit into at least one, you're good to go. The funding amount is up to $5,000, and we do expect to be able to award 18 to 24 grants. Keep in mind, it is a competitive grant. We will expect upwards of 60 grants to be submitted. So about a third, a little more than a third will be funded. And then this grant does not require matching funds, but if for example, you might need matching funds if your grant project is over 500. You'll need existing funds to cover whatever is not covered by the grant. So going back to the funding dates, as I mentioned before, projects can start on June 15th, 2026 through Black History Month of next year, February 28th, 2027. Some expenses that cannot be part of this grant program is existing artworks, projects, or programs. So some clarification on this. So some artists have component parts of big projects. So if you're, you have a series of sculptures that you're doing and you're applying for one of the sculptures in that series, we consider that a new sculpture, though it's in a bigger concept. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know. We're just not funding projects that have been ongoing and are just staying the same. And then you cannot pay for permanent staff positions of an organization. You can, with this grant, pay yourself, the artist. You can pay an, project director. If there's other people involved in the project, specifically involved in the project, they can be paid. And then capital improvements, which is buildings or construction, major equipment purchases. So you'll see in the guidelines that it says you can buy small equipment, and that's defined as $750 or less. So an example, if you use the funding to upgrade a part of your camera, if you're a photographer and it's less 750 or below, it is eligible. And then seed money for starting new organizations, school projects, fundraisers, and event sponsors. The good part, you can use the grant to pay for a lot of other things. So artists and organization fees, supplies, small equipment, local transportation, and a word of the wise for local transportation, you would base that on the mileage rate of the IRS for 2026. And then rental fees, so like perchance you need to rent a venue or something of that nature, that can be used for that. Marketing, so posters, Facebook ads, radio spots, flyers, anything you can think of. Documentation, the biggest is like you have a photographer or videographer there, and they have a rate that they charge. It could go to that. Assessment tools, for example, like if you have surveys or if you know, pay someone to be there during your event to help gather qualitative and quantitative data, you can do that. Project manager fees. And then if your project does require liability insurance, we do not require it, but you'll determine that for your own project. It is eligible. So some additional grant information, as you will read in the guidelines, at least one performance or exhibit is free and open to the entire community, the general public. So what that means is there will be some artists who will have multiple performances or multiple options, days of exhibition time. As long as one of those days is free and open to the community, the other days can be ticketed and things of that nature. Um, if applicable, participant and audience numbers must be tracked. So keeping record of who attends and things of that nature is important part of this grant. Hopefully, if you're awarded, then you will receive the final report, which includes what data is needed, particularly audience participation is needed for the grant. So you won't go into it blind. You'll actually have all the forms before you even start to help guide you on what you need to gather as you go through your project. And that same with project expected outcomes must be stated and assessed. Project and finished artworks must be documented. Project must include publicity that recognizes ArtsBuild as a funding agent. And then mid-grant update and end of project reporting required. And what I'll say about all of that is when you're awarded, you're prompted with an initial email that spells it all out to you. And then I will set up a call with each of those who are awarded to go through the checklist to make sure you feel comfortable with all that you've proposed and all that's required of you. And so, between the application and the final report, all of this, you will accomplish without any problems. And I'm always here, and I know Brianna is majorly helpful as well. We can walk you through things as needed. Lastly, the mid-grant update isn't as formal as the final. It is literally me sending you an email, checking in, seeing how I can support you, getting a reminder of when your event is, because I know that we do love going to all the grant projects and celebrating your accomplishments. Um, in a second, I'll jump over to guidelines and also the application. We do encourage you to read the guidelines thoroughly and check your eligibility. So the guidelines are your roadmap to the whole grant. It's literally the first thing you should read before you start the application. In fact, one of the first questions is, did you read the guidelines? Which seems really obvious, but I have noticed that people forget to do that. And it's the most important document before starting the application. I encourage y'all to explore the application now versus a week before the deadline. Um, it never fails. If you wait till the last minute, you run into technology issues. I am one human who can only help so many people at the last minute. If it's late, we can't review it. And so we really do want to be able to review it. So the sooner the better would be great so that I can help you through all the parts that might present challenges for you. And then, yeah, check in with us with any questions. Um, Double check your budget to make sure your expenses match up with what you're talking about in the application. And I will pull up the budget template in a second. And then it's always nice, always before we submit grant applications, we ask a colleague or y'all might have a friend to read the application and give feedback because they're going to see things, and I will in the draft review that you might not see. Because in your head is all your ideas, and you might think they're very obvious when you've typed them out. But I'll notice, or a friend or a colleague will notice, like, oh, this picture needs to be painted a little more vibrantly so that those reading it can understand the full scope of the project. All our grants are on a 100-point scale, and it's outlined in the grant guidelines. And we'll talk about being a grant reviewer if you make a choice not to apply. But the reviewers use the same rubric to score each grant. And so it's based on artistic engagement, artistic quality and cultural experience, project implementation capacity, which is a lot of big words just to say you have a timeline that is clearly delineated out and it makes sense and it looks like you understand the scope of time needed to do this project. Budget feasibility, documentation, and evaluation. And so grant review panel is comprised of community members such as yourself from diverse backgrounds, and then also at times ArtsBuild board members. And so let's say you're listening to me today and you're like, she's saying a lot of great things, but I don't think I'm going to apply this round because I'm nervous or I'm not ready or for whatever reason. But you're like, hey, I would like to read and score grants and help that process because all of ArtsBuild funding is not determined by myself, nor Brianna, nor James, no staff member here at ArtsBuild. It is determined by our community members because we hold a belief that the community should drive what the arts looks like for Hamilton County. So every panel is comprised of a different set of humans. And so if you're interested in being a grant reviewer instead, you just email me and I'll give you the background on that process. And then the panel meeting, just re-emphasizing, it'll be June 3rd and 4th. I'll have dates and times more solidified once I know how many applications there are. It's via Zoom. Applicants will be invited to attend. And then benefits of applying. You get the opportunity to go through a grants process We did about a year or so ago, we determined about 40% of individuals who apply are first-time applicants of any grant. And so we're a great organization to kind of learn the ropes of writing grants because I'm hoping it's really straightforward. You have a lot of support. And so you can kind of go through that process without maybe, hopefully, not major stress. And then you will have an artist statement and portfolio that's ready to use. You become part of our network. You have the opportunity to stay up to date with what we're doing grant making wise, but also when our next open house is, or when we have shared service opportunities, or being a part of receiving our newsletter. And then, when you're awarded, we share your project in our via our social media outlets and also our newsletter and things of that nature. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing really quick. Okay. Before I jump over to the guidelines and the application, does anyone have any questions? And I hope Matt can hear. Okay, I'm going to share my screen for the application. Give me just a second. Okay. Here we are. Okay. You should be able to see my sign in for submit. Is that correct? Can you see that, Brianna?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So if I go to the little house, I will, you'll see view forms and you scroll down. One thing you'll notice is ArtsBuild final report. That's at the end. It's all the same for all the folks. Keep scrolling. Those currently up are not pertaining to you all right now, but you see Artist Works and you click into it. It has this front page and we're going to hit apply. Before we hit apply, we will jump into the guidelines. And so this is a 3-page document that goes through a lot of what I talked about. Who's eligible to apply, the goals of the program, funding requests is up to 5,000. How it works with us is a 75-25 split. So upon award, you are provided 75% of the funding. Once your project is complete, you've completed a final report, which includes using all of the having expenses that add up to the award amount, then you're provided the final 25%. So, which is, sometimes confusing to artists because what they'll do is they send us an expense sheet that adds up to only 75% of the award. At the end, to get the final 25%, you have to have an expense spreadsheet that adds up to 100% of the expenses. And when you're awarded, if you're awarded, I will go through that to make sure that that is not confusing and you have everything you need. I do emphasize with this grant that all grant funding is taxable. So at the end, you do receive a 1099. So keep that in mind when you're applying. And then it has application deadlines, granting periods, accessibility statement, the disciplines, what you can expense and what you cannot. And then here is the rubric. I'm going sort of fast through it, but y'all can read through. And then some non-discrimination policies.
Melissa, we have some questions in the chat.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Courtney asked, is a project still eligible for artist work funding if it has already received some artist work and partnership funding?
It needs to be a new project. So it can't be like it can't be layered together. So this does need to be artist-led and a new project.
And then we also have, does the public performance exhibition requirement still apply to literary art submissions?
Yes, it does. Okay. Now I'll go back. So I'm back to my face sheet for my application, and I will log in. You'll see if I can remember my password. Let's see. And I'm a winner. Yes. Okay. So this is our application for this grant. As I said, do you have a clear understanding of the attached guidelines, which seems obvious, but sometimes folks just forget to read the guidelines. And then you just go to the next, whatever question you're at. So you'll just type in lead artist name. You'll notice on the right of your screen, you can see all the questions. Folks who haven't written grants before, and if you have a method, whether you're going to pull all the questions out into a separate document, like let's say Microsoft Word, and you're going to type there and then cut and paste back in, or you're just going to type right into this application. And whenever you leave, you have to save and quit. If I was going to give advice, I would pull the questions out in a document that you're used to working with, whether that's Microsoft Word or Google whatever, or Mac, whatever you use to type documents in, I would use that so you can save it in your files. So if for some reason something crazy happens with our system or how you're doing something in our system, you always have that backup. Because also when you download your application from our system, it's downloaded as a PDF. So you'll want a more workable file in your records. And then I'm going to go through a couple of the questions. Some is just real basic. We've just added this question, does your project involve the use of artificial intelligence? The use of AI technologies does not affect eligibility for funding under this grant program. And if you click yes, it's going to ask you a question of and how is AI being used? We're gathering information right now to see what it looks like for our grantees for Hamilton County. Some people are using AI to support the grant writing process or a thought partner or things of that nature. So we ask that you just answer the question, and our reviewers know that if they have an application in their file to review, whether it has AI involved or not, it is eligible to be considered for funding. And then here you can pick your category. You'll tell me if it's an exhibition or a performance, or in visual fine craft. You can hit more than one. You'll notice I'm going to do all of them. Um, and then you'll put grant request amount. So this, yeah, let's say you put 5,000. The next question is going to be to download, to upload the budget document. So what you'll notice, you see at the very top, there's a very tiny download button. I can't make it any bigger, so I'm pointing it out. And you double click on that, and you'll see up here, Brianna, you tell me when I open up this document if you can see it. I don't know how the sharing works. It's pulling up the Word document. Can y'all see that?
No, we can't see the document.
Okay, I'll go back in a second and go. Um, but I'll go back and pull up the budget document so you can see it, but you can see where to download it. Let's say you have trouble grabbing that document. You just have to email me. I'll send it to you directly. I have been known to even help people input their numbers in when there has been challenges. I won't create your budget, but I will help you get it onto this application. As long as you have the numbers and the people who are being paid and things of that nature. Because if you don't have this document attached upon submission, it will not be reviewed. And because of the volume of applications we receive, we will not ask you for it so that your application can move forward. And the goal is for your application to get to reviewers. Some other things I'll say about the budget is be specific. So if you're going to ask for money towards marketing, um, break it down. You need to make calls to local printers to see how much posters will cost, if there's a design fee, and who's being paid. If you're going to pay for a venue, you need to have the name of the venue and the rate that they're going to charge. If you as an artist is being paid, your name and your rate breakdown needs to be there. If you're paying other artists, you should have the names of the artists and how much they're being paid, things of that nature. We get a lot of generic budgets, and you know, the applications who score the highest are the ones that have specific details about who's being paid, how it's, what, or what is being paid and things of that nature. If you're doing local travel, look up the IRS rate of travel and estimate how much travel is going to be involved. Just know that if you're awarded and your budget shifts some throughout the project, as long as you're communicating that to me, you're emailing it to me, and I give approval, that is fine. But we do need pretty great specifics on that. Let's see. This is just emphasizing, are you willing to provide a W-9 if recommended for funding? Because grants are taxable income. Okay, so what do you plan to do? How, when, where, what groups, populations are targeted? So this is where you just talk about all things projects, talk about who's involved and where it's going to be and who's benefiting, and the nuts and bolts, and also the passion behind and the reason behind. What I noticed with applications, why I've put how, when, where, and what groups, really spelled it out, is because people don't put enough details. This is your plan of action so that reviewers can see what you're proposing. And then the next question would be, who will manage the project? Who are the project artists? So this is where you talk about your team. You can even put websites or Instagram links and things of that nature. And then the timeline. So, what are all the component dates of your project? When are you meeting about planning, or when are you going to launch marketing? Are there rehearsals involved, event dates, things of that nature? What you're showing to reviewers is that you have all your ducks in a row for this project to be successful. Let's say you have all these dates mapped out, you get awarded, and some of them shift a little based on real life, right? That's fine. But with this application, you do need specific dates to help reviewers know that you can be successful. And then what are how does your project meet the goals of the Artist Work Grant Program? And so I've put the goals again here so it's easier for you. What you'll notice is you may provide a written answer or a video recording. A lot of our longer questions have the option of video. So you can type or do a video, either is fine. And then addresses of where project's going to take place. Upload examples of your work, up to 10. I would highly suggest at least 5. And if you have 10, I would do 10. Then how did you hear about this grant? That just helps us. And then submit. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. What questions or suggestions do you have? I know there are some past grantees on here that might have tips and tricks for navigating our system. Okay. Well, I'm waiting for see if people have questions. I'm going to pull up the budget document. Okay.
Can y'all hear me? Oh my
Yeah.
God. So I put it in the chat. I had a question. As for liability insurance, would the 5K go towards the project, and would that cover or protect the artist involved in the project that I'm funding?
Yeah, and so that would if you contracted some liability insurance, you would talk to whoever the company doing that so that the liability insurance covers what you need. And so they'll be able to help you with that. And when you move forward, that's not my area of expertise, but I can connect you with the humans to help you with that, to make sure you're covered and your artists are covered and things of that nature. So I kind of answered it, but kind of not. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to pull up the budget document. We have about 10 minutes before. Just going to confirm you all can see the budget document. Thumbs up if you can. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So, I know it sounds picky, but please put your name. Because what happens is our reviewers will pull up this same document for every single applicant they're reading. And all their tabs will be open, and then all of a sudden they have all of these budgets without connected names. And then they get confused, and we do not want confused reviewers because that does affect scores. So, first thing, put your name. And then the first table is income. So think of this as you're thinking of, okay, my project is $6,000, let's say. So you see here that it says ArtsBuild Grant. You're going to request 5,000. And then you still have to cover 1,000 of that project. So how are you paying for that other 1,000? So let's say you have donations or existing funds, or a foundation has supported you, or a corporation, whatever, however you're going to cover that. And then you see right here is a little dollar sign. you'll total that column. So it should, if we're on my hypothetical 6,000, it'd be 6,000. So that's the income, the money that is covering your project. And then you see this very first expense table. It is all of the expenses covered by the ArtsBuild funding that you're hoping to get. So you're going to do the amount, the description, and down here, the total. Description of expenses where I'm talking about like if you're paying an artist or yourself or a project director a specific venue, that's where you write that. Let's say, you're going to rent out the Hunter Museum. You'll Hunter Museum venue fee and whatever that is. So this box should not be higher than 5,000 because that's the highest you can request of this grant. So then you'll scroll down, and the second expense box lists all the associated expense items that will not be covered by the ArtsBuild grant funding. And so that's in my hypothetical is the 1,000. And so let's say, 500 will be out of state travel, or 500 will be food and drinks or whatnot. So it would add up to 1,000. And then in-kind contributions, that's anything that is provided to your project that helps you move forward, but did not cost you any money. So let's say instead of me paying the Hunter Museum for my venue, they were like, hey, Melissa, come on down. We'll give it to you for free. So that's an in-kind donation. And so I would add that into that box. You don't have to have in-kind. Some projects will and some projects won't. We just like to see the full scope of what's happening budget-wise. Is there any questions or concerns about the budget template? Okay. And then I think I think we're pretty good. So we have gone over the goal of the grant, the guidelines, the application, emphasize that I'm here to support you. If I'm not here, Brianna is. And yeah, what else do y'all need? Or do you have any ideas or concerns? Or let's see. Awesome. I'm going to stop recording so we don't feel so much on cue. Let's see.